As the BBC and Amblin began negotiations, BBC Enterprises came forward with their own ambitious plans for a 30th anniversary Doctor Who special.
I was approached to be the director of this, and it was going to be a feature film, only to be released on DVD or cassette, probably in those days.
They didn't know whether or not they were going to get more Doctor Who, and they knew they needed something to refresh the library that they had. So by putting something new out there with the Doctor Who title on it, Worldwide figured it would help refresh sales for them. And so it was their agenda to push this through.
They had certainly taken the initiative of it. There wasn't anybody in the drama department involved with it at all.
The anniversary special was a fly in the ointment for Siegel's own ambitions. Back in London, and unaware of this latest development, BBC Enterprises were busy readying their 30th anniversary special, now called Lost in the Dark Dimension.
They approached me to produce it, and we had a meeting with the executive that they put in charge of it.
And it was going to be Tom Baker as the main Doctor, but all the remaining Doctors that were alive were all invited to be a part of it.
They thought, and kept reassuring me, that they were doing all sorts of deals, and old Doctor Who's would want to come and do it for next to nothing.
And also was going to have Rick Mayall as the main villain in the story, which I think at that time would have been a real coup, because he was really, really big.
I thought it needed a far bigger budget if it was actually going to work at all. I thought this was a travesty, and I didn't believe what I was being told about what it was actually going to cost.
But help was at hand in the form of the new BBC One controller.
Alan Yentob got wind of this being made and said, I'm going to invest so many hundreds of thousands of pounds into this because I'd like the rights to show that on BBC One. I think that's a smashing event.
There was a Doctor Who mooted, which was kind of low budget and all the rest of it. And eventually this idea came my way and I took an interest.
He was the one who was prepared to put a certain amount of money into that to make it happen. So presumably he thought, since it was a one-off, let's actually test the water.
By now the BBC was taking the Amblin project much more seriously, and Cregeen asked for Siegel to be sent a copy of the Dark Dimension script.
We were very close to closing our deal. And it was actually Tony Greenwood who called me up and said, we'd like to do this. Do you have a problem with it? And I said, well, send me the script and let's take a look at it. And I read the script and it was awful. I mean, it was really embarrassing and it was silly. And we were going to march out all of the old Doctors and it just felt wrong. You know, it felt like here we are going to sort of reinvigorate everything and this is coming along. And it was going to muddy the waters and confuse people. And especially because we were so close to delivering our Bible and our script.
I was contracted for the shoot and for the preparation. I worked on it for 5 weeks and then it folded. I think Amblin Films, Spielberg's company, were interested in buying the rights. And I think BBC had to cease and desist or that deal wouldn't go through. I don't think he'd signed by that stage, but that's the kind of thing that... I think that's what happened.
I asked him if he'd put it on hold, and they did. It upset a lot of people.
At the same time, Bill Baggs was planning his own commemorative film, The Airzone Solution.
The BBC tried to get a drama off the ground and failed. I remember getting a phone call from Colin Baker at the time. We'd set in motion the film. I think we'd even set the filming dates. And Colin said, he rang me up and said, I've just got some news. The BBC are thinking of doing a drama. So whilst I'm planning the Airzone Solution, I'm thinking, well, actually, we could just do it anyway. And I can't remember actually the detail, whether he thought that it was a good idea or not. But then, as it turned out, that project died, and all that was left was the Airzone
The Airzone Solution marked a new direction for BBV. On the evening before the first day of shooting, it was announced that the Doctor Who 30th anniversary special, The Dark Dimension, had been cancelled, and its ghost was never far away on the set of the Airzone Solution.
There are many, many great, many writers out there who would really love to be invited to write for Doctor Who. Just well-known writers. And it was the 30th anniversary, a very big special. You most likely could have got some incredibly grand writer to have written for it.
Absolutely.
They didn't even go there, they should have gone for somewhere. And along the lines of there are going to be 5 doctors and they all have...
Who is the gentleman who wrote it?
He's a fan.
He's a glorified fan. A very nice chap, but a little misguided in how to structure a television script for 5 people of arguably equal status.
Well, I'm only 5'6" and a dog in, but my part should be bigger.
That's all the production.
Do you think that the fans, first of all, would want to see all of you together? And is that the way that you would rather handle it as well? As to
More interesting.
Like we did with Peter, when Peter was the gaffer.
Well, but yeah.
The 5 doctors, we all integrated together and we worked.
There wasn't in this. There wasn't a scene in this one where all the doctors came together.
Those that existed at the time. Those that were in it.
Well, you went
Although we did actually have a scene when we were all together, I know that John told me, John Nathan Turner, did keep the doctors separate because he was worried, before we made it, that there would be ego clashes on the set. And in fact, it didn't work out like that, and we could have done far more together in the Nine Doctors. So with that experience of hindsight, yeah, of course.
No, but it all worked like a dream. Everybody worked well. We had enormous fun doing it. And that's what the fans want. They want a jolly with all the doctors equal.
The 5 Musketeers. Yeah. It should have been.
There was a point when he suggested to me that because I found my part extremely similar to that which I'd done in my last season, i.e. a trial scene, in that case you could change over with Peter's part, because he's got to see the Cyberman. And I thought, well, that shows you how the parts have been written specifically for us, I should say so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absurd, isn't it?
Absolutely.
They're interchangeable.
Yeah.
That's what I'll change with Tom.
We were the first people with the official news on the Dark Dimension. We were the first people with the official news that the Dark Dimension wasn't going to go ahead.
It was going to be the biggest Doctor Who drama that there'd ever been, the largest budget, all the Doctors together, hopefully, a whole load of monsters. It would have been the biggest Doctor Who ever. It was a terrible shame that for various reasons in the end it didn't work out, but we got very close.
It really was a story based around one Doctor in which the others would figure really as episodes in that story. It was never intended to be an even-handed thing, and that's where I think it's interesting to decide just what was behind it, because although we were making it for the fans, we weren't doing it by committee and we weren't sort of chopping it up into, some kind of formulaic thing. We had what we thought was a very interesting and challenging story, which featured all the elements we wanted it to feature, and that's what we wanted to make.
In the end, Doctor Who fans got their 30th anniversary special, albeit in reduced form as a 15-minute skit for children in need.